We're speaking today with Paul Drysch, the CEO of PreAct Technologies, which makes sensors that work in pre-crash conditions. But I won't go into that. I'll let Paul explain exactly what the product and the technology is all about.
All right, great. Well, thanks for inviting me today. Yeah, so I'll give the quick elevator pitch. PreAct Technologies started about 3.5 years ago with the idea of making low-cost pre-crash or imminent collision detection sensors that could be mass deployed on vehicles, in a cost-effective way. This isn't about collision avoidance. It was about detecting an imminent crash that just based on the laws of physics was impossible to avoid. So what could you do to mitigate the impact of that collision? And there's actually quite a lot that can be done. Anyway, long story short, we developed this camera, this flash LiDAR basically, that could do that. But then, as we were showing it to all the automotive companies and tier ones, they're like, oh, I've got more immediate uses for this, and this, and this, mostly around ADAS systems, like slow ADAS, like park assist, blind spot warning, self-parking, convenience features like automatic door actuation or tailgate, automatic tailgate lift, curb detection, like parallel parking so you don't scrape your wheels, all these other things. And so that's where we've spent spending about 90% of our time these days. We're still working with one big tier one on pre-crash, and we'll likely be working with a Japanese OEM on pre-crash here soon. But again, 90% of what we're doing is not pre-crash anymore.
You say it's a camera-based system.
It's a flash LiDAR.
Flash LiDAR, okay.
Yeah. But it's unique in that we leverage most flash LiDAR and most LiDAR in general use a laser, with a steerable beam or something like that, whether it's solid state or not. We use continuous wave time of flight imaging technology. So what that is, it's we operate in the near IR spectrum, and we're illuminating the scene, the whole scene at once, whereas a laser's, just kind of going back and forth. So it's almost like a flashlight in the near IR spectrum. So it's not visible light, and it's illuminating the scene. And we then take that point cloud, and we're processing the every pixel at once and getting distance and things like that, other characteristics from every pixel. So it's really unique in the industry, and it also, because it doesn't use lasers and some of the other expensive stuff that traditional LiDARs use, it is honestly, it's like an order of magnitude less expensive to build than a traditional LiDAR.
And how many of these sensors would an average vehicle need to accomplish the different ADAS functions you mentioned, or are they specific to each function?
Yeah, it's kind of, the answer is both in a way. You could, with one of these cameras in each corner, you can do a lot, or most of the slow ADAS functions, the park assist, blind spot, self-parking, the things that today ultrasonic sensors and short range radar do for a car, for other features like the automatic door actuation or lift gate thing, you need more of the sensors to be, say, like in the side mirror for the door, or in somewhere on that lift gate for the automatic lift gate operation, so that those would be additional. Those, those could help out in certain ADAS functionalities, but they're by themselves are not really enough to do what needs to be done, I guess. You couldn't replace all the ultrasonic sensors with just, our cameras in the side mirrors and the lift gate.
That you actually got one ahead of me in terms of the questions. If that's exactly what I was going to ask. Can your systems replace all the others in a vehicle? Okay, the answer is no.
That is the goal. Yeah.
But right now you say reduced costs are one of the goals of your product versus what's out there now, what's been traditional, I should say. What kind of, do you have any kind of, even by percentage, how well they work in terms of saving on a vehicle?
Well, so there's two ways to look at it. One, we're wildly less expensive than traditional LiDAR. We're more expensive than ultrasonic sensors, but at the same time, you need a whole 8 to 12 ultrasonic sensors, the wiring harnesses, and the ECU to control it. And still, they only do one small piece of that ADAS puzzle. So our goal, and what we're working with, a couple of the tier ones on, is to kind of build the business case that, okay, we replace, X number of these sensors and X number of these sensors. And by using PreAct, we not only enhance existing use cases, but we enable some new ones. And the goal is that the sensor suite, the standard sensor suite, does not go up in price. So that's what we're working with, a few tier ones to accomplish, and it looks like it's looking very good. Let's just put it that way.
At this point in time, are you being used in any vehicles that are on the road?
No, but we have been selected for future platform. Yeah. So we're working towards those production agreements, but our product is a design-in product, so it's got to be integrated into the ADAS stack, if you will. So the auto industry,
yes,
the 2 to 3 year kind of design in to get to production life cycle.
In the use of your product, does weather impact it at all, or is it something because it's LiDAR that weather is not in?
Sure, just like LiDAR, any optical sensor is going to be impacted somewhat by adverse environmental conditions, snow, rain, fog, things like that. We're lucky in that, one, we are illuminating the scene. Two, we are near field sensing. We're basically 0 to 20 meters today. That's our focus. So because of those things and the fact that we have a high frame rate, which means we're taking a lot more pictures, so to speak, of the scene, we're able to kind of pick out, or I should say, we're able to deal with those adverse weather conditions better than like a long range LiDAR, which may see 300 yards in perfect weather, but when it's raining, heavy rain, it goes down to 20 to 40 meters. Mm-hmm. We like to say that if the weather is bad enough to really adversely affect our sensor, you shouldn't be driving in that weather anyways. Or if you are, you should be driving only, a few miles an hour. I grew up in Stockton, California with the Thule fog, And I can't tell you how many times, you were driving in that, and, next thing you know, you're like, literally you're on the wrong side of the road and had no idea. And you're only driving like 2 miles an hour as it is.
Oh, yeah.
Scary stuff.
I know what you mean. So you say this will be part of the suite of sensors on a vehicle?
Yes, that is our goal. Our biggest long-term goal, you could say. We're doing other, like I said, other more one-off use cases, and our cameras applicable for like heavy trucking, robotics, things like that. And those are a little easier to get added to the vehicle than automotive.
In heavy trucking, a lot of the ADAS systems are after production add-ons
Right.
that are being manufactured and sold by the big companies. And I take it that's what you're indicating is.
Yeah, that's part of it. Yeah. So that's one of the production programs we're working on is it's sort of kind of aftermarket like that. It's kind of a cross, but yeah, it's much easier to get added onto a vehicle in that space. Okay,
back to what I was told, one of the original premise of PreAct was the pre-collision, that imminent, as you call it, imminent collision within less than 100 feet.
Yeah, that's basically, we have a probability engine that's built into the edge processing of our flash LiDAR that is constantly looking at, all the objects around it and determining what is the likelihood of a collision based on kinematics or just pure physics based. Like, okay, we know a car, can exceed, the tire tread's not likely to exceed, 1.1 G forces and things like that, so, if an object's coming at you, at a direct vector at a certain speed, there's a point in time within probably more like 50 feet where you get to know, like, just based on laws of physics, it's impossible to avoid this crash.
I mean, 50 feet at 30 miles an hour is an instant, or less than an instant.
Yeah, and that's we operate in milliseconds, and believe it or not, in the pre-crash world, that is huge, because today passive safety systems like airbags and seatbelt only operate after the crash happens. There's basically an accelerometer on the bottom center of the vehicle, and if a certain number of G forces are applied to that accelerometer, it says, "Oh, we crashed, let's blow the airbags." So that takes time, and then the messaging to the airbag takes time. So that's all post-crash. And that's
Right.
why airbags are so explosive and not that big, is because they don't have much time to save you. So if you have even just 20 milliseconds pre-crash, you could do so much more. You could tighten that seat belt. You could deploy a larger, a third stage to that airbag. You can tilt the suspension. Nowadays, a lot of the higher end cars are coming with electronic suspensions.
Right.
So they could, if you're about to get T-boned, you could tilt the car up just like 4 degrees, and the frame will take much more of the impact than the door, which, as it's like the weakest link, when it comes to safety. So there's a lot of little things you can do to mitigate injuries and deaths from car crashes.
What you just described, there's two situations.
Can I take my little break here real quick? Okay, I'll be right back.
Again, the break report today is talking to Paul Drysch, the CEO of PreAct Technologies, about his unique LiDAR camera, for layman's terms, sensor system. You were describing pre-collision sensing and the things it might be able to accomplish based on some of today's automotive technologies, like adjusting an automatic suspension system to hike up, so to speak, on a T-boning. about to happen T-bone accident,
Yeah.
and to take more of the brunt of the impact on the frame rather than the door.
Right.
Along those lines, you'd earlier mentioned, you'd mentioned putting 4 sensors, one on each corner, to cover
Mhm.
most activities. Would that be the means to handle these imminent collision type situations?
Yeah. Yeah. So obviously for imminent collision, you want as much forewarning as possible. So
Right.
being on the extreme corners is the ideal position. So kind of like being embedded in the headlights and taillights would be perfect for that scenario. And that, but again, our sensors are just, they're detecting the imminent collision and notifying the vehicle's ADAS system. We're not making that decision of what to do. We just know, pre-crash has been studied and studied and studied, and it's kind of the holy grail of automotive safety. Because it's been proven there's a ton of things that can be done to mitigate impact, but nobody ever really figured out the sensing piece. Certainly not in a cost-effective way. And there's also a lot of, I know you work on kind of specialize in braking systems. This would be kind of a next generation of this, but there's a lot of things, given the kind of central control now, like the braking systems and that, and being brake by wire, you could do certain things like, if you're about to get hit in one corner of the car or something, you might just tap the front brake, or the system kind of tap the right front brake if you're about to get in the left corner, to kind of unweight the mass of the car. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
Kind of just a tiny bit, things like that. Now you'd have to be really careful because, you could create other issues, obviously, but
Yeah.
it's things like that, or maybe stuff that previously wasn't where we would have considered it impossible to avoid the crash. Maybe for like close misses or close impacts, or slight impact, you could now actually avoid them, with super fast, like just a little adjustment to the steering and or braking, you might be able to avoid the kind of more glancing blow type crashes without doing anything too drastic with the car. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Just the dynamics of, there are
Yeah.
so many factors that go into the dynamics of a vehicle on road that it does.
Right.
And I do understand the smallest change can have a major impact on what occurs.
Right.
And a lot of drivers don't get that.
Yeah, because I understand, I'm not a braking expert, but I know there's a, literally from the time somebody is stepping on the brake, it actually, there's a delay before it actually gets to the brakes.
Yeah.
And that keeps getting better and better, over time. But, with, kind of drive-by-wire braking systems and, and faster charging, you never know what's possible,
I mean, even some of them anticipate, they add braking because of sensors.
Mm-hmm.
You step on the brake, but the system will actually brake harder, faster than the driver does, because the sensor says a crash may be imminent, or something is occurring. Now, speaking of braking and imminent crashing, virtually every car, well, by 2022 sold in the States, will have automatic emergency braking, AEB systems. I've noticed in the vehicles I drive, and I drive a different new vehicle every week, so I sample the latest vehicles that are out there, from small cars to very large SUVs and pickups. AEB activity is different vehicle to vehicle. I've noticed on a couple of occasions, I've had the big orange dashboard when I've been on a highway and nothing's been in front of me. I mean, it's mystifying. And then the other thing is, what I find with many vehicles, I only get that warning when someone's making a turn in front of me. In other words, I'll be behind a car on the street at a relatively far distance. The minute that car makes a left or right turn, I get a warning of crash imminence.
Yeah.
And the distance hasn't changed.
Yeah.
Is that a sensor issue? Is that a AEB system issue?
Yeah.
Is it
Yeah.
something your sensors will
Yeah.
deal with? And how does your okay, long question. I
Yeah,
apologize.
we're not long range sensors, but I mean the problem is in the automotive industry, you want to be, there's always a balance between false positives and false negatives.
Right.
No system is perfect. And so the auto industry, and I think rightfully so, wants, to kind of never get it wrong, that no false positive. So in that scenario, if you want like no false positive, you're going to end up with a bunch of false negatives, which is what's the annoying part with ADAS systems today. And so, yeah, the downside is a lot of people turn off their ADAS systems because there are so many false positives. I know I do.
It's depending on how annoying the warning is, that's what happens now. But you said you're a short range system, obviously. That's the purpose. How do you mix with the long range? Because a vehicle will have both as part of the AEB.
And they do today. They have ultrasonic sensors in the bumpers and short range radar for blind spot warning and backup.
But even for just front emergency braking, there's both short and long. It's
my understanding that's just long range sensing, but I don't know. Things are always changing.
But so you're going to intermix with those.
Yeah. So it's our goal is to replace some of those other short range sensors.
Now you're saying one of the goals, of this entire concept of imminent crash detection is belt tightening, because one of the safest things is someone securely in their seat is in a much safer position with or without an airbag. Either way, but especially with an airbag. Now, it's got to be more than a dozen years ago, Mercedes-Benz introduced PreSafe, which was the first pre-tensioning. But was that was after the crash, wasn't it? It was that the first instance?
No,
or did they have a sensor?
I believe that was pre-crash, but it was also kind of longer range. It was more about, they needed a lot more warning from what I recall, so they need more distance. So it's kind of like a variation of automatic emergency braking in that. But nowadays, and a lot of times the old seatbelt, like after the crash, after the accelerometer in the vehicle tells you the crash happened, a lot of the seatbelts had a pyrotechnics version, to tighten it really hard, really fast. Well, now folks like Autoliv, I know, I think probably everybody that's making seatbelts, they're designing high-speed electric motor versions that can do the same thing without pyrotechnics. So you don't need to replace your whole seatbelt system, after a crash. And you can, because of that, you can do more. You can be more proactive.
Okay.
Because there's no big deal. Like, okay, my seatbelt system tightened and it was a false alarm. Yeah, it would get annoying if it does it all the time, but at the same time, you're going to really be happy, when you are in a crash and it does that,
Yep. Back to PreAct, where will they be produced when you go? Where will you produce them?
Well, the initial ones, we're using a contract kind of manufacturing partner that's actually based out of California, Southern California. That's for the initial kind of production stuff. Longer term, our goal is not to actually be a hardware company. We're you probably know of other companies like Mobileye and some others that they basically design a camera that meets the spec that they need to do. But at the end of the day, what they sell is that system on a chip that makes it all work. And that's what we're doing as well. We consider ourselves much more of a software company that does hardware out of necessity because no cameras like this exist today. So that's why we've designed our cameras ourselves, but we will license that design to the tier ones and tier twos of the world, who will build that, put our system on a chip in it, and sell that as part of an ADAS system or a park assist system or whatever it may be.
And you have found some tier one and tier twos that are interested?
Yes, definitely.
Which means then they need an OE client to show interest to make it worthwhile for them to get started.
Yes. Yeah. Yep. You know the industry.
5 decades. The question is competition. Are you alone in this, or is there somebody else out there?
Yeah, I mean, our biggest competition is getting the OEMs and tier ones to trust that our sensors work better than what they're using today. The auto industry is, they don't move off existing technology easily.
No.
Yeah. So it's, it's not a quick process. But we've been at it for 3.5 years. So we're at that kind of inflection point now, and unfortunately, as you know, well, the auto industry is pretty secretive. So I literally can't talk about
No.
any customers or programs really. Yeah, but we're working in the auto OEM and the heavy trucking spaces today, and dabbling our toes in the robotics market.
One factor that goes into all of these safety systems, the companies designing them, building them, selling them, as well as those implementing them, is liability issues, legal issues. I take it you've gone through all that and you figured it's worth the pursuit.
Yep. Yeah. And also, another good reason for not being the hardware manufacturer, still, if you're doing the software that's detecting this stuff, you're still obviously liable in that. And we will need to meet the at least ASIL B requirements. So we're going down that path as we speak.
And actually that was a lead into the question then becomes regulatory end of it. Is the government up to speed on these safety issues where it's conducive for companies like yours to pioneer these systems?
They are very open to it, to new technologies. And again, we're small. We can't, we're not going to be lobbying NHTSA or NCAP or anything like that. But some of the, tier ones and OEMs will, and I mean, that's a long road, long process. So we will support any of our customers in that effort, but we are not actively lobbying anybody.
How large a company is PreAct?
We're about 25 people today with a bunch of kind of consultants, outsourced folks too, and we're growing. We have, 10 or 12 open positions right now. So not that big, but we're about the right size for what we're doing.
You're in the Northwest?
Portland, yeah.
Any time frame you think the first on-road applications will appear?
Later this year.
Really?
Yeah. More, not not really, a design in thing. I can't really say too much about it, but yeah, later this year, we'll have our first production ready product around mid-year. So yeah.
And are you starting, as you mentioned, with the slow ADAS applications?
The earliest kind of production customers will not be ADAS. They will be kind of safety related, but generally other use cases that can justify the addition of an incremental sensor. There's enough of a business case where it's it makes sense to add an extra sensor to the vehicle. That, again, this industry forwards and backwards, obviously, clearly. While the OEMs keep adding more and more sensors, they don't want to, because they all cost money.
No, they don't want to spend it.
Yeah. So I know, sorry, I'm being very vague here, but it's
no, I understand it. You can't say much. I'm just curious about direction. But yeah, OEMs don't want to have one nickel's worth, one penny's worth of product or weight or ounce of weight unless they have to.
Yeah. Hold on one second here.
Thanks, Paul. I think
contractor stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. At this point, you've filled me in where we are. It'll be interesting to talk to you mid-year when your applications first start appearing, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Very much.
Happy
keep up
to.
Also on the progress you're making in the safety areas. Be very interested, especially on this imminent crash concept.
Imminent pre-crash is a passion. It's something that will save lives and prevent a lot of injuries. And so, it's why we started the company. It's so our passion is there. It's just, that's the longest, kind of pulling the tent, so to speak, or it's a long road to get to, on vehicles, with that technology.
But it sounds like this has gone the way to so many products in development. You have an idea, a concept, you build towards it, then you discover other uses and potentials. This is not unique to this product area.
It's funny, we were introduced to a perfect use case just this morning for RVs.
Okay.
Kind of a non-safety thing, but it's a definite need, and it's our camera would be absolutely perfect.
I take it just by the computerization of everything. The computers and integrated systems can manage so many functions. Sensors are their eyes and ears. To enable them to do different things.
Yeah, and they just keep getting better. Ultrasound is kind of ultrasound. There's not a whole lot you can do with it, but radar, there's now 4D radar, which is really cool. So instead of just seeing that there's some blob out there about X distance away, now it's I actually have some resolution. I can see that's kind of looks like a car or a person or something. That's a big step forward. And of course, LiDAR just continues to get better and better and better. It's
amazing to think where the industry has come in 50 years. The whole automotive industry, thanks to these other industries that now are part of it. Which were not when I started in the business. ABS wasn't around yet.
No, I was working at Honda Motor when airbags and ABS came out, because they were, I don't know if you remember, it was almost like the same year. They're 1 year apart or something.
I was at Mercedes-Benz when we had the first ABS vehicle in the States. And they were delayed a year by the lawyers. And the fear was not the driver of the Mercedes. the fear by the lawyers liability wise was the guy behind him who couldn't stop because the Mercedes would stop better because of the
Interesting.
ABS system and get hit from the rear. And it was
Yeah.
the driver in the rear that they didn't want the lawsuit.
I believe it.
Lawyer, that's why I asked the legal question before, because I
Yeah.
know legalities oftentimes get in the way of inventions
Mhm.
and progress. It's just the society in which we live.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
Anyway, I appreciate your time, Paul, and the information. And
Yeah.
thank you. And please keep us posted on what's happening with PreAct as time goes forward.
all right. Will do. Great talking to you.
Nice talking to you. Thank you.
Thanks.